The research that I'm going to be talking about is my Wabash River project that me and a PhD student work on together. And so what we do is we go down the Wabash every 5 or 10 miles, we'll take a sample, and we're looking at different pollution, water quality, we're looking at soil, sediment, and we're taking up macros, which are little bugs that live in the water, and those give us an idea of organic pollution. It was a lot of fun. But in our boat we would have, it's been like a couple weeks since I've been on it, so I'm having to jog my memory, but we have a pH meter, dissolved oxygen meter, temperature, conductivity, and dissolved solids. So we take all those meters and we'd have a little notebook, and we'd write the coordinates, the time, the day, all of that stuff, and the site number, and I think we're up to site 44 right now. And then we would take 4 water samples, and then we would take 2 floodplain and 2 sediment samples. And then my favorite part is we'd have a little kick net, and we'd find a good spot where macros would live. So if you see a log in the river kind of on the bank, more than likely there's going to be macros in there. And so we'd scrape and we'd jostle up the water for about 3 minutes and pull it out, pour ethanol on it to kill it, or else they're going to eat each other and you only have the predators left. And we'd have a Tupperware of macros that we would later study and look at. So when we came to the lab, we took all of those things and we have to freeze dry all the soil, sediment, and whatnot. And then the water, we put 1 milliliter of nitric acid in it to suspend all of the metals. And then we open up the macros and look at them and figure out, oh, this is a mosquito, this is a mayfly, this is a caddisfly, and each of those has a value assigned to it, meaning like how tolerant they are to pollution or how intolerant they are, and then you get a biotic index for the site or for the trip or for the whole river. And so the water and sediment samples, we would look at different metals and the pollution there. So it's a lot of chemistry in the lab, which our original plan was to be finished by this time, but the Wabash got really low and then got really high and then it got cold. So we put the pause on it, and we're going to continue in the spring when water gets at a high safe level, because right now it's like 18 feet. It's kind of crazy. So we'll pick up next semester in the spring, and we'll probably finish up in a couple trips. It'll probably take us like 2 or 3 trips to get to the Ohio River. Looking back, I would have never pictured myself doing this. I asked one of the tour guides, oh, does anyone go kayaking on the Wabash? She's like, oh no, not the Wabash. Are you kidding me? It's gross. People die in there. Oh. So I'm like, oh, okay. It's not one of those rivers, right? So I had it in my mind that this is not an activity river. This is just a river you look at and, on this. We were setting out macro traps, which are little traps that bugs find their home in, kind of like a big apartment complex. And then we take it, and those bugs give us an idea of the water quality. And so we would put it in the creeks that feed into the Wabash. And we're like, it'd just be easier if we got on the Wabash and put them in the creeks that way. So Kathy bought a boat, and we would go from Clinton to Terre Haute, and then Terre Haute to Darwin Ferry. And is pretty short, and at first it felt super adventurous, kind of scary, and we just did that for almost a whole summer. And I got comfortable enough, I'm like, okay, I could do this. And then we went way north when we decided to do the Wabash project, and we were in a canoe. And that was a little shaky the first time, because I'm like, oh man, if we tip, that's it. There's no, it's easy to tip a canoe rather than a boat. So I was a little nervous, but we made a good paddling team, and I got the hang of it. And after 1 or 2 trips down the Wabash, or the little trips we made, I got pretty comfortable with it. It was pretty okay. Even now, it's changed, and I haven't realized it wasn't a stark change. Because when that first summer, I was still I didn't really want to touch the water. And now I'm like, whatever, I'll get in it, who cares? And so it's, it's fine to me. It looks muddy and gross because it's just the clay and the sediment getting kicked up, right? It's not really harmful. And I was always afraid I was going to stick my feet in and a carp was going to eat me. They're more afraid of you unless they jump, and they scare me more. But, and I'll even talk about it in class, and people are like, ugh, you bathed in the Wabash? I'm like, it's just water and clay. It's not that big of a deal. So I'm more desensitized to it. It's not gross. It's not crazy. You're not going to find any wild stuff in there. It's just a regular river, and it's fun to play in. I know personally, living in Indiana, I was like, there's nothing here that's cool, right? I thought that you'd have to go elsewhere. I thought the only cool thing in Indiana was the dunes, right? And you just have to look. So I think that after hearing this, I hope that people can look and see, oh my gosh, there's creeks I could go and, see nature happening, right? I didn't think that, this sounds weird, but I didn't think that nature happened in Indiana. And you can see like the amazingness of the Wabash is, and while it isn't like, you can't have big ships going down it transporting things, it's got amazing science happening in it, and there's just really cool nature happening around it. There's awesome wildlife. The flora and fauna is just fantastic, and I don't think people notice that or appreciate that enough. Coming to Terre Haute, I didn't think there was a lot to do, and when it came to anything really, I'm like, oh, there's nothing fun to do when it comes to like doing things indoors, and there's nothing fun to do when it comes to doing anything outdoors. You'd have to go somewhere else to do that. But after living here for 4 years, I've realized that's not true. There's a lot you could do indoors and outdoors. You just have to go out and find it, right? It's not going to be super apparent for whatever reason. I guess they don't advertise it that well, but like, there's kayak launches all in Terre Haute and West Terre Haute. So if you have a kayak, or if you can rent a kayak, you could spend a great weekend out there. And there's constantly like things at the park. The parks are wonderful. And it's a great community, and I think it's a lot of fun here that I didn't realize when I first came.